Welcome to On the Brink with Andi Simon. I'm Andi Simon. As you know, I'm your host and your guide. My job is to help you get off the brink and to see things and feel them and think about them in fresh ways so that you can see the opportunities, often through role models that you may not have known before or met before. But as you listen to their stories, and I guess we have over 350 blogs and podcasts now, something happens to you and you go, oh, she did it. I can do it too. And so today I am absolutely excited and honored to have Laura Grondin here with us. I met Laura at a Vistage meeting. She is a devoted member of Vistage. And if you're unfamiliar with Vistage, it is a huge organization that's global that brings together CEOs and their key leaders and speakers like myself to help them see, feel, and think in new ways. And they are very exciting. But what Laura and I began to think about was how could we tell her story so that you could learn from her, pick up her wisdoms, think about how she was able to navigate rocky waters. You know, are women CEOs of many companies in the very technological automotive, water, and gas markets. And I'm going to read you her bio because it helps me remember what we're going to talk about today. But Laura is the CEO and chairman and owner of a privately held industrial products company, two subsidiaries, Bingham and Taylor, and Hartford Technologies. They supply a diverse range of products, primarily to the water, gas, and automotive markets. You should read her websites. You go, ooh, because not only is it full of who they are and what they do, but how they're innovating and their extraordinary ability to create new ways of doing things and to see the world and as it's developing. But they are a 175-year-old company. And they, as I tell you, encourage reflection on a blend of tradition and forward thinking. And that's not inconsequential because people are afraid of what's coming next. But the past isn't going to help you. What did Babe Ruth say? Yesterday's home run will not win tomorrow's game. So you could be good, but tomorrow is a whole new journey. And she is a woman-owned business which embodies the power of merging deep industry knowledge with modern innovation. It's a little interesting that by 2005, Bingham and Taylor was a 51% female-owned company, and 2021, Laura Grondin took over 100% of it, ushering in a new era for women-owned companies in the natural gas and water sector. She is also heavily involved in the sailing community. She's a member of the U.S. Sailing Board of Directors and served in multiple capacities, including chair of the International, and I'm going to say this wrong, Melgis 24 Class Association.
You said that correctly.
I'm trying hard.
Sorry to jump in, but yes.
No, you can jump in. And past Commodore of the Groton Long Point Yacht Club. What I loved is she's been a competitive sailor for many years and was twice nominated for the Rolex Yachtswoman of the Year award. And she's a tremendous advocate for women in business, particularly in STEM fields. And she's been involved with organizations like C200, which is a wonderful organization that supports female CEOs. Laura, it's so much fun to see you, to have you, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Andrea.
You and I have been talking a little bit about your own journey. And it's a wonderful journey that other women who are either starting up their businesses or trying to get ownership. Remember, there are 13 million women-owned businesses in the US, and they're all trying to scale and grow and figure out how do we do it and do it a little differently, perhaps. Maybe not. Tell us about your own journey. Who's Laura?
Right. So I began my journey, really, I think about it, my time at Yale University. I was a member of the Yale sailing team there. I ended up joining that team by seeing a flyer on a phone pole. This was, 1981. There was no internet. There was no Facebook. And honestly, I think if there had been, I probably would have been too intimidated to show up. But I showed up, and that kind of began a different leg of my sailing journey, which I can talk about later. But when I graduated, I had studied architecture at Yale, and my father had acquired Virginia Industries, which owns Harvard Technologies and Bingham & Taylor, while I was in school. So I didn't grow up with it around me. As from an owner perspective, my father was an executive. So he offered me a job doing what was then called data processing. You might now refer to it as IT. And I decided that doing that versus going and drafting, like literally with a pen or pencil, drafting an architecture firm might carry me further in my career. So lest you think I'm going to give you a year by year, blow by blow, that just sort of sets the stage for where I started. I never expected to stay. But my father allowed me increasing opportunities. And in 1999, he decided to retire, and he made me the CEO of the company. I would say that I spent my first 5 years as CEO trying to correct or bring the company into competing globally. We had some pieces of the business that were not working well, and I had to make some really difficult decisions, shutting down plants, looking in people's eyes when you tell them they don't have a job anymore. It's a very difficult thing to do. I then spent the next 5 years sort of, okay, we're okay now. Let's just continue to be okay. And then
I'm laughing because that's a great way of talking about it. I like stability. It's okay to be stable.
Yes. Now, I will admit that during the dot-com boom, I felt that I had missed something being in this sort of old line manufacturing company. One of our businesses is 175, the other one's almost 100 now. So I do remember that feeling of like, wow, I should be doing something else. But then I've really spent the last 15 years, if I have my math well, focused on how to grow and build these businesses. And that's what has brought me to where I am today, speaking with you.
As I'm listening to you, a couple of things for our listeners and our viewers to emphasize, one of which is serendipity. That sign on the post, was there an intentional searching for? Did you go on Google? There was none to look at. And there was something that caught your eye and you went, oh, and look where that went. And then your father offered you something completely different than you studied. So much for planning. And you were going to spend your whole life there. In fact, you didn't probably know what you were going to do there, but there was something interesting. And you're an explorer at heart, I bet.
Yes, and I would actually share that when my involvement with C200 at the time was really quite impactful to me. But I joined C200 because I had gone to a meeting of the women corporate directors. I'm still actually engaged with that organization. But I had gone to try to figure out how to be a director on someone else's board. And while that didn't work out, I sat next to Catherine Swintek, who at the time was the chair of C200. And she said, you should really think about joining this group. So I would have to put into the lessons learned bucket for today, open the door. Yes. Because the doors that you're describing, as well as the story that I just told, are places I ended up unintentionally.
Yes.
But because I went through the first door, I got to the second place because I was open to trying something that I wasn't really sure how it was going to work out.
The interesting part of our conversation is that I had a life of serendipity, and someone said to me, no, God was watching you. And I said, well, I don't believe in God. And he said, well, he believes in you. And I said, okay, I'll take that. They said, how do you grow your business? I said, I show up. I said, I keep finding places where the door opens, and I never know what's inside. I am an explorer by archetype. But as we're talking, you have taken a company that needed to be turned around. You wanted to, protect the legacy of your father. And yet you knew its growth was going to come in new markets and new places with new things. And somehow you had to begin to visualize it. I don't want to lose that story for a moment, though. Tell us
Sure.
about it. How did you do that? A little at a time, bringing in new people. What is the nature of growth like that? This is a real growth story.
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me changed when I stopped looking inside the company and I started looking outside the company. And I think it was someone in my Vistage group saying, viewing the world from behind your desk is a scary place to be. And so I started going to trade shows. I went to visit customers, suppliers. I had by that point, I think, joined the Vistage group. So I had and I had different coaches along the way. So I had a kind of a peer support group as well. And what I really learned was that the more I was out in the industry talking to people, the more I learned about what was going on, and the easier it became for me to figure out, like, okay, where are the opportunities? So one example, we provide a product in the California market. Now, in a lot of times, what they'll put in the roadway is a concrete box. We supply a cast iron. I mean, this is very Mother Earth, right? Kind of stuff. And but we went out and we saw these concrete boxes and they were sort of crumbling a little bit. And we said, well, we can make something better than that. And so we did. But it's a small example, but it's an example of, if I hadn't been out there looking, I never have seen it.
Yes. And you can say that a dozen times. If I wasn't out there looking, I never would have seen it. And my folks probably
Yes.
would have fulfilled it with what was there, as opposed to seeing the opportunities of something even better, right?
Yes. Yes.
Have you been able, because I hear this all the time, I find it myself, it's hard
Yes.
to get our folks to begin to see opportunity as opposed to fulfilling within the box that they know.
Yes. And I do think that we have some very good salespeople and some good executives who've been with the company and been with the industry, who really do have an understanding of the fact that you have to continue to innovate. As a company, we have been one of the first to incorporate plastic in our industry, for our specific products. Not to say that plastic hasn't been used in other parts of the industry, but certainly with what we do, which for Bing & Taylor is to provide access and security for gas and water utilities. And so there's been a history of innovation in the company, really back to our early days in the 1800s, of looking and seeing and working with customers to say what can we do to help you out. And I think that's really been the key to success. And I think we have that is embedded in our DNA as an organization, and it's helped us be very successful.
But you said something important there. You said, how do I help you? What is it about what you need that I can help you be more successful, as opposed to, this is what we do, let me sell it to you, let me tell you about the features and benefits of it and why you should buy me. And that mindset is a very powerful one that people should embrace, regardless of whether they're in the service industry or they're manufacturing something. It isn't what you do, it's what do they need. And this has changed everything, because people's needs are all going through a great transformation now, right? And they are all concerned
Yes.
about, the pandemic, the post-pandemic. As you're thinking about it, have you built, a couple of HR-ish kinds of questions. How did you build a team that embraces the kind of creativity that you seem to articulate?
I think the key is that people have to feel secure.
Mhm.
They have to feel that you are there for them and that you are not going to judge or criticize them if they make a mistake or if they bring something to the organization that ultimately doesn't work out. And I will say that I have gone down a few rabbit holes and pursued a few new products that never worked out.
Mhm.
I've also pursued some that took longer than I thought to really be developed. But I think it's that openness to allowing for creativity, allowing for mistakes, and also for having some patience around developing something when you can see that it is good for the customer, it will work. It sometimes takes longer than one would hope.
You know, you said a very important word though, because we decide with the eyes and the heart. We think it's with the head. But the
Mm,
neurosciences and cognitive sciences and a little social science have shown us that if you see it, you can begin to believe it. Your story begins to encompass it. And even if it isn't quite there yet, somehow you're going to figure out how to, because you can see its benefits. It's really going to
mm,
be transformational in some way. If only I can make it happen. Now, how do we do that? You know, how many times did Edison fail before it finally worked? And you got the same attitude to it, right?
right,
That's good.
right.
You know, a friend of mine the other day said something apropos to your sailing life. You have two lives here that I think are worth
Yes.
sharing. And his wife had lost her position as a senior executive in a firm, and she had gone back. She has some time now, and she's baking. And he laughed, and he said, you know, as a sailor, I've learned that the ocean and the winds and all the currents outside of my boat and myself are going to be the platform on which I have to live. And
Mm,
I have to now navigate on always rocky waters because I never know where that wind is going to take me and how I'm going to tack to get back to where I need to go. And how am I going to do this? And in some ways, the wife was beginning to address it in the same fashion. It was outside of her control. So now she was going to have to navigate. My hunch is that there are metaphors that you've learned in sailing that would be of interest to our audience as well, because it sort of parallels the way you've approached your business.
that's true. And one of in the last couple of years, I've done a lot more highly competitive racing than I had probably since college. I took a hiatus from my Vistage group. So they required me upon missing a number of meetings to kind of share some of my lessons learned from the race course. And one of the things that I like to share, particularly when I have the opportunity with young women, even girls, is to always keep the tiller in your hand,
Uh-huh.
to not give it up. And I translate that to say that always take the opportunity for a leadership position. Even if you don't think you can do it or don't know what you're doing, I shouldn't say don't know what you're doing. Don't think you know what you're doing is what I should say. Hopefully you do know what you're doing, but anyway, is to take that risk and to not just turn over the leadership to someone else. And that has really helped me quite a bit in my career, not just in the sailing. And so that is one of the key things. I would say the other lesson, and there are quite a few, so I'm just cataloging in my mind which ones to share. But I think what I would say is one of the things we say on the boat is do normal.
Uh-huh.
And I know that that's a word that could be controversial in this day and age, but what we mean by it is just do your job. Do what you are expected to do. If you see somebody else on the boat faltering, you need to kind of let them falter, because if the minute you step to do their job, you're not doing your job well. And I think this does also translate into business, is that if I do my job well, it allows other people around me to do their job well. And that has been, I think, a real key to our success as a team, and our teamwork is that we believe in each other and we count on each other. And that trust, that is just really, really important. And I think those are some of the lessons that I took from the race course into the business world.
You're not taking your staff out sailing now, are you?
No, I'm not.
But this is really relevant for women, particularly going into science or technology or in engineering or math, where the turnover rate is high.
Yeah.
Very talented. I gave a couple of workshops on imposter syndrome, and I didn't realize I've been an imposter my entire life. I've always been overconfident, maybe never overconfident, but I always thought I could figure it out and how to do it. And so as you're looking at the future, which is going to be so STEM-ish, some wisdoms that you begin to see developing for women in particular, but for men and women, this is going to be a whole new world developing.
It is. And I believe there's this, you probably know better than I, but there's a statistic out there that something like half the jobs that will exist in 5 years don't exist today, or something like that. And I think this leads me back to really a point that I made before, which is that you just have to be open to change, and you have to assume that things are going to change. And, a lot of people want their life to be predictable. And if you ask them, where they think they'll be in 5 years, it's a projection of where they are today. And that's really not the way that life works. It really is that that things are going to change. So when I, look at the businesses that we own, I think about what is going to disrupt us. What are the things that might not be happening today, but could happen in the future that could change, the things that we're doing. And one example that I would give of that is for many, many years, we melt cast iron at 2,700 degrees, and we use coke, which is a byproduct of coal. And we were not an environmentally friendly company in that regard. We had all the appropriate EPA permits and all of that. But we made a decision to go with electric melt. So instead using electricity. Now I'm a realist. I understand how electricity is generated. However, overnight, we became a more environmentally friendly company. It allowed us to get out of some of these permitting issues that we have, and it increased our productivity, and it increased our capacity. So overall, it's been a really great decision for the company. But part of it came because of a fear. I was afraid, with environmental regulations getting tighter, that we were going to get to a point where somebody might come and say, hey, you just can't do this anymore. And I thought, that's not an acceptable answer. I need to do something else. So, and I've gone off a little bit on tangents. So I've lost the original question, but I think it's about innovation.
Correct. But you said a couple of things in our conversation here. Look outside, not inside. And being environmentally at least concerned and attempting to make changes. I think that we as leaders must do that. And solar powers my home now. And there's a community group here that wants everyone to pay attention to their carbon footprint and to reduce it. And they don't realize that so much of the carbon comes out of simply living. And,
Yes.
and they're unaware of what could be done. But if you can make a major transformation like that, now you're right, electric energy is coming from somewhere. So something with whether it's wind or and everything has a negative piece to it. Even electric cars. What are we going to do with the batteries when they stop battery?
Yeah, it's not a straight line.
Nothing is. On the other hand, humans are very clever and creative, thank goodness. And I hope that what the folks who did this have is a pride that they are making a difference. And it isn't simply protecting their job. It's really something bigger. The purpose is more than just me and my job. it's me and my society in which I'm living. And that's really, I think, transformative now. I think it's not going to be casual. We're going to have to really focus on this. Yep.
Yes, no, I agree. And I would say that there's two things that I think bring joy to our and pride to our employees. And one is the investments that they've seen us as an organization make. The second thing I would say is that, we do help bring clean water to people's homes. And I believe that we emphasize that with our employees. We remind them that is, ultimately what our products help do. And I think that fits that piece of people that want to feel that what they're doing in their job and as part of an organization is something bigger than just themselves, that they're contributing to making, the world a better place. And I know that that's more of a, I don't want to say it's a younger person's game, because that's not exactly what I mean, but it is something I think that's more in the hearts and minds of younger people. And maybe it's just the idealistic part of life. I'm not really sure, but I think finding, so maybe I'll stop thinking that way and just say that I think that it's about, finding things that your employees can feel proud of and feel proud of themselves and the work that they do.
And to some degree, I don't care whether it's elder or younger,
Yeah.
company has a place that you can belong to that does something intentionally to improve the quality of our lives. Everyone embraces it, and they become
Yes.
part of their own personal story. Remember, when they work with you, it's part of their personal brand. When someone
Yes.
says, "Where do you work?" You want to feel proud of where I work, and let me tell you how, where, and it isn't easy today to be able to do that. We're actually starting some research on what belonging means and how it's a story all about. But this is really cool. Are you looking at other things coming out of AI or I don't know, machine learning or blockchain or quantum computing? I mean, are there little indicators of things that the fifth industrial revolution is going to come and transform you?
Yeah, I don't know about that entirely. But it is on my mind to try to figure out how we can use that. We used it last week to do some research on our competitors. We
Yes.
literally, we had somebody who, they went to I guess it's called Chat GPT.
Yes.
And they put in some questions and gave the list of competitors we were curious about, because we're going to a trade show next week. And it was amazing to me what we got back in an instant. And it really made me realize that, like, when I go to Google search for something, that maybe there's a better way. And so I think for us in the short run, it may be about being more efficient with gathering information.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm doing I have a management development program for a client I worked with for 6 years, and we've added decision making into the mix. And I went to chat. I use chat all the time. I love it.
Okay.
And I said, okay, how will you, AI, chat, GPT, change the way we make decisions? And in about this much time came a whole list of all the things we can do better and faster and more easier than brainstorming, decision trees, 6 hats. And I went, oh, so I can't simply help my accountants begin to see how to make better decisions without showing them how to use the wisdom. You don't have to believe all the stuff that comes out. You can go check it out. But in a second, you have my best friend who comes back, and I can call Laura, or I can call my best friend, and in a minute, at practically no cost, get a pretty good starting point. And then it says at the end of each one, now, if you'd like more information on any of these, let me know so I can put in, and all comes more information. And I'm a curious person. And I like speed. So speed and ease has taken over from Google land. And talking about
Yes.
Google missing the boat on this one, hello, where have you been?
Yeah.
Had an alphabet and not see what's coming. And it's sort of an interesting time, even for a Google land.
Yes, it has to be, because it is really going to change a lot of things.
Yes.
And I think what's going to make it difficult is to know what's authentic.
Mhm.
I listened to a professor or some type of podcast about a week ago, and they were talking about the fact that student papers, as an example, can just get drafted by using AI. Well, then how do you know that it's a true piece of someone's work? That's a little scary to me. But I think for a business person, where we're not so worried about I shouldn't say authenticity, but about it being a real work, an individual's work. I think, we can definitely do things faster.
But you said an important word. What is my work?
Mm.
And I had a copywriter who was very angry that I was doing a good deal of my blog stuff on chat. And she was now becoming the editor, not the writer. And she said, I've had enough, I quit. And I said, well, you can quit, but I would advise you to reconsider who you are and what you do. Because you should be using this as a starting point for all of your creative stuff. Because everybody is going to, and you will find yourself an archaeological ruin for the way we used to. And ironically, I got a couple of emails from people I know who are copywriters saying, I'm looking for new clients. Do you know anyone? And I said, unless you're fast and what now the question for you and us is, how do we know what's authentic? And I'm not sure what does that word and what does my work, all those things are now going to be thought about again,
Right.
So, and you want it to be my daughter is a special ed teacher, and she started to use lesson plans out of chat for her special ed need kids. And it comes out fast and easy and gives her time to do the work with the kids instead of doing the plan for the kids.
Right. And why not?
As she said, it's pretty close. I have to still do it. But it just takes away the pain of having to put something on paper. I don't know. I do think the times they are changing. So
They really
now
are.
time for us to wrap up our lovely conversation.
Okay.
Give our listeners 1, 2, or 3 things you don't want them to forget. And I've written a couple of things down here too.
Okay, in
Your
case I
thoughts?
missed, that's good. So I would say number one is open doors,
Yes.
and don't be afraid to walk through them. And be open. Once you walk through that door, be open to what happens, because it just may not be what you expected.
Yeah.
I would say the second thing is, don't view the world from behind your desk.
Mm.
Find a way to get out and talk to people, and build relationships so that you get information. I so often go to I'm going to a trade show next week, and it's not about what any one person tells me, it's about what I hear collectively that
Yes.
inform my decisions. And then maybe I guess the last one I'd like to leave with is, take any opportunity you can find to take on a leadership role, even if it's as a volunteer, to get that experience of leading.
I think that so that is really profound. I teach a leadership academy, and I say to my leaders, you need followers too. And you are a follower as well as a leader. Your analogy
Yes.
in the boat is important. Know what your job is, but also know how to move and be flexible so that you can play the role that's needed at the right time in the right way. Clearly, I don't want another pandemic, but I used to tell my clients, if you want to change, have a crisis or create one. Well, we don't need more crisis, but look at how many new things emerged out of something bad, because everyone
Yes.
has to change. And I often lecture on how to make change your friend. Instead of fearing it or fleeing it, your brain wants to get away from me and from it. But if you can tell it, that's a good idea, you did, I can sail. Next thing I know, I'm Yachtswoman of the Year, maybe. And all of it is coming together in ways I
Yeah.
have a plan, right? And yeah, and your last thoughts.
No, the sailing has really been quite a renaissance for me over the last few years, and not something I ever expected to be in a position, at this, part of my life. And I just really believe that life is a journey,
Yes.
not a destination, and that, again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but being open to what may lie ahead is so important, to having those most wonderful life experiences.
And I'll end and tell our listeners have fun. And I think as you
Mhm.
listen to Laura, both in business and life and in sailing, I mean, just smile a lot. You'll find that it brings a warmth to the folks around you. They'll trust you. That reduces the risk. Let's see where it takes us. I like the word see, feel, and think, because that's how we make good decisions. And the data is there for us to sort out a lot. Um, I'm Andi Simon. This is On the Brink with Andi Simon, and you all are my favorite friends. Thank you for coming. You send me great emails at info@andysimon.com or info@simonassociates.net. My third and newest book, Women Mean Business, written with Edie Fraser and Robin Spiesman, has 102 women in there who give you 5 wisdoms each. That's 500 wisdoms, like today's conversation. Everyone who opens the book gets inspired. You have no idea how interesting it is to go to a client and have that client underline the book in yellow all over the place. And she said, I'm going to change the way I'm running my business. Oh, really? I mean, this is sort of an interesting experience for me. And that came about, to Laura's point, because Edie called and says, want to write a book? And I said, about what? She says, well, I'm not sure. I said, sure. I mean, that was the door that opened, and out of it came this wonderful book that's selling remarkably well. Amazon loves you. So go pick one up at Amazon along with my other 2 books. Been a pleasure to have you all today. Laura, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Andrea. Have a good day.
And to you too. Bye bye now.